I want to share with you one of the techniques I've had a lot of success with over years now, and that's free line fishing live bait. What I do this with primarily is a threadfin shad, and using this technique, you're going to be able to catch largemouth, striped bass, sometimes catfish, occasional yellow and white perch as well. It's the most successful way I've had in catching fish overall. If you've got live bait that's active and moving, with this technique, they go where they care to go, and they get bit more than any other technique I've tried to date. There are some drawbacks to this. You're going to have more lost baits with missed bites, more tangles and snags. It requires constant attention, and it is impossible with much wind. And what you do here is you've got, and it's going to be lighter tackle, so you're going to have challenges getting that fish in as well if it's the larger one. You've just got here, I use a 10-pound braid for the main line, and the reason I use that with a thread fin, you've got to cast them out there. You can't cast them out real hard. If you do, you're going to rip them off of that line. So you can't do that. You've got to have relatively light line. I also have on here a liter of fluorocarbon. That's typically going to be a 8-10 pound test, and I use a uni to uni knot to tie that onto my main line, and Palmer or clinch knot here at the end. One other thing I do, which I've just started doing recently, but it's made me more successful and caused less casualties. I put a little knot, and here it's just a cheap 30-pound mono, but that keeps the bait from riding up on the hook and getting itself hooked in the head and dying. It allows it to stay more active in the water. Got less casualties doing that. For threadfin shad, typically I use a 1/0 hook, J-hook. This is nothing fancy. Bronze is my preferred type. Two things. One, it's easier if you do get snagged to pull it off of there without destroying your whole rig, getting back into fishing. And the other thing is that if you do have a fish you want to release and let back, and it's gut hooked down into the stomach, you can just cut this off, and it's going to be disintegrated and allow that fish a better chance of surviving. And that's also, if you're in an area where there's a barb restriction, you're not allowed to use barbs, you can easily push that barb down. It's a challenge. Any time waster struggling and battling with that when you've got stainless steel. So, with this technique, you've got to toss that bait out, and then you've got to constantly observe the line. If it wants to go away from you, let it. You can do that two ways. You can flip the bail, and it will go ahead and move out. Close it back up. Don't let too much line out. If it's coming to you, you've got to reel back in. That's what I'm talking about, constant attention to that line. If you see that line jump, it might just be that fish, that bait fish, getting a little spastic at a threat. It's more likely, and you can tell through experience, if it's going to be something actually grabbing hold of that bait fish, and it's time to reel in your slack and set that hook. You can also troll like this. I've had a lot more luck trolling like this than with a slip bobber weighted. That fish again is going more where he wants to go. just intermittent pull on that trolling motor. Give them a little slack, keep an eye on that line, and I've had a lot of luck that way too. So hope this helps you out. For some of you, it gives you a new technique you can try out. One thing more on your tackle rigging, I told you about the line, told you about the leader. The spool on this, you're also going to want to consider getting a reel that's going to pull that line in a little bit faster, because you're going to have to react to that fish and get that slack line in quick. So do recommend you get a faster reel for this mission, and also a fairly high line capacity, because if you do hook into a big fish, it's going to strip some line off of here. This light tackle, if you got that drag set off, even if you get a 28-inch striper, it's going to pull off a ton of line. If you get a bigger catfish, biggest one I've gotten doing this so far is weighed out at 28 pounds. Got them into the boat. And with those catfish, you got to keep constant tension on them, as you should with all fish, but especially with them, because this small a gap in the hook is not going to be probably in them like it should. I've had a lot of experiences with those larger catfish with these smaller hooks where I've got them in the net and that hook is just popped loose. Those larger catfish, that almost always happens. So you got to keep constant tension with these lighter hooks using this technique. Anything else you guys can think of, feel free to share in the comments. Anything I overlooked, I apologize. I'll be happy to try to help you out with. But give this a try if you haven't already, and I hope you have a blessed and successful fish trying this technique. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing. And hit that bell. You want to get notified when I make new releases in the future.